You
Some of them are the same also.
love it.
Okay, we're getting started. All right, I think we're rolling. What should I do this movie mood theme style of?
Do it in the style of Nebraska.
Okay. Oh, it's movie mood. Oh, it's movie mood. It's movie mood, Mister. It's movie mood.
Well done.
Yeah, thank you.
That was Alex Van Horn presenting the opening theme in the style of Nebraska.
Yeah, from
And,
Bruce Springsteen's classic album, Nebraska. I
and
think the closest thing I came to that album was when I said Mister.
that's where I picked up on it too. So, well done. You're catching the subtleties.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Alex Van Horn. I'm John Alberto. This is Moviemood.
Yes, and today we are talking our favorite movies by alphabetical um, letter.
Right. So what we mean by that is our favorite movie that starts with an A. Then we'll go to B, C, and onwards. Probably.
And I think we both have found it a challenge because we don't really think about the first letter of titles a lot. And I think there are a lot that were D's, B's, and M's for me. And
Yeah,
I
I had
think
a
those are
lot
really
of them.
strong, like, what is that, like glottal, like, B, B, Blade Runner, B, B, or D. Like, it just has very effective for a title.
Right. I actually had a tough time with
Sounds.
B, but we'll get to it. But then I know
Yeah.
we both had problems with Q's and X's, so we'll see where that goes. But
Definitely. Depending on how much time we get, we'll probably go just to the M's and make it a two-parter.
yep.
But yeah, let's begin.
All right.
So I'll
So
let you start it off with letter A.
letter A. So we both picked a favorite movie. How do you want to do this, Alex? Do you want to share our movies and then kind of discuss them, or like I share
I
mine?
think we should I guess if you want to share yours and discuss it, and then we can discuss that, and I can let you know what mine is, and then we can go back and forth.
All right, love it. So
What
my
was
favorite
yours?
movie, my favorite movie that starts with A is Amadeus,
Hmm.
a
Nice.
Milos Forman classic, won the best picture Oscar in the '80s. It is the story of the rise of Wolfgang Mozart, told from the perspective of his rival Antonio Salieri. And what are some things that I like about Amadeus? I love classical music in movies, and this movie does a whole lot of it. I also love movies that are told from the perspective of a rival. I think about very popular musicals of their time, things like Jesus Christ Superstar and Hamilton, which I both
Hmm.
love, which are presented from Judas's perspective and Aaron Burr's perspective, respectively, those
Right.
musicals. And Amadeus does something very similar, and I've always dug that.
Yeah, I like Amadeus too. I wouldn't say it's one of my favorites, but it's definitely a very entertaining movie. It's a good flick. I like how you compared it kind of to Jesus Christ Superstar or Hamilton. It kind of modernizes classical, Mozart and the characters around them to he almost seems like a modern day rock star, like a David Bowie or Prince type.
Right, the scenes where
And
he's conducting are
mhm.
he's like a rock star. Yeah,
Oh yeah, and he's got these big operas, and those scenes are pretty amazing with the candlelight too. I guess a lot of it is filmed with candlelight, similar to Barry Lyndon.
yeah,
And there's a lot of
absolutely.
good stuff in it. I really like that director, Milos Forman. Also, there's a really good documentary about him. And he just seems like he was a really interesting, good guy. He was kind of the same generation as a lot of the 60s, 70s directors. And the documentary is a lot about his life. I think he's from Czech Republic. Yeah.
Mm,
And a lot of his movies were made under like the domain of like the Soviet Union. So a lot of his movies were very like about anti-authoritarianism and um stuff like that. Like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which is a
right,
pretty great
right.
movie.
Yeah.
And yeah, and he's good. I would definitely recommend checking out that doc because he was really quirky. Like he has this whole section where he's talking about ducks. They just filmed him like
I love that. That
pretty
that
great.
reminds me of that reminds me of Werner. Just
Oh
having
yeah, he kind of is like Werner. Like he there's like a lot of stuff of him just like philosophizing and going on runs. Like he was a big runner.
mm,
Yeah. But yeah, that's a good choice. That's a
yeah,
good one.
thank you. Where do you stand on the A movies?
So for me, I'm between two movies, and part of it is like my very serious cinephile self who wants to be honest about like what's the greatest, movie to my mind that's affected me quite a bit. And then there's the movie that I just really enjoy and is insanely quotable and I've gone back to in my life just to cheer me up at
I
certain
know where you're
times.
going.
Yeah. So the first one, well, I'm gonna say that both of them. First one is Aguirre, Wrath of God, which, yeah, yeah,
I thought you were going to
um,
say it. I was going to guess it. I think
yeah,
they're both of yours, so I love that.
yeah, yeah. What do you think the second one is?
I think it's Anchorman: The Legend of Ron
Yeah,
Burgundy.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So those two movies, I mean, both are about like crazy patriarchal men, but
very egotistical men.
very egotistical. Yeah, who are really insane, and one of them does not have a good end, and it does not look good for Don Aguirre, and for Ron Burgundy, it's just a goofy send up of the news, and I don't know. Yeah, it was between those two movies. I think for me, like Aguirre, if you just take like the first that opening shot like alone, like if that was only the movie, then it would still be like one of my favorites because
Right.
that opening shot is so good.
Yeah. Now, is that your favorite? It's your favorite movie that starts with an A, but is it your favorite Herzog movie?
It's probably my favorite fictional of the Herzog movies. If I think about it, that one or the Nosferatu
Yeah.
remake
Yeah.
are big ones. Fitzcarraldo also, but Fitzcarraldo is it's a long haul.
Hmm.
And Anchorman, I think, is my favorite of Adam McKay's movies, but Big Short is up there.
Okay. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
a big Adam McKay, and that actually transcends right into my favorite B movie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, which is The Big Short.
Oh no way.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah. So
I
Adam
I was
McKay.
gonna guess Butch Cassidy, but
So
all right.
I love Butch Cassidy. I really do love Butch Cassidy. It's my favorite Western because it's not really a Western, and I don't like Westerns.
Mm.
But The Big Short is more. I feel like I can relate to it more. I guess.
Mm.
I always have an interest in finance and things of that nature. Um,
Yeah.
but in the recent week, The Big Short has become a very topical movie again.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, with
Yeah,
the GameStop stuff.
right,
Yeah.
right. And I
Yeah,
actually,
I heard that happening, like all these people betting on it. I was like, oh, that sounds just like the Big Short.
yeah, that's exactly what they did in The Big Short.
Yeah. It's insane.
Christian Bale's hedge fund in the movie bet against the housing market.
Mm.
So yeah, Adam McKay is a is a wonderful director of comedy. And
For
he
sure.
knows how to take very, very serious subject matter and make it funny, make it relatable, make it a lot of things. And I think he was able to do that because of how quippy he made Anchorman, how quippy he made his earlier movies, and it all kind of works together. But yeah, it's a great movie. It raises a lot of ethical questions about, you know, things that the market does. It raises ethical questions about, you know, the lending practices in the United States in the 2000s. It's a terrific movie with terrific performances. Um, Although Steve Carell's performance in it is probably not as great as his performance in Anchorman.
Yeah, he is pretty good in Anchorman, and he's a really good comic actor, I feel like. And if you take certainly I don't think it's he has the best performance in The Big Short. I think Christian Bale just kind of is hard to it's hard to compare a lot of performances with Christian Bale because he's insanely good. And then Ryan Gosling is really good in The Big Short, and who else? All the other like bit players in it are really amazing
Yeah,
actors.
Margot Robbie shows up in there.
Yep.
Yeah,
And like all of Steve Carell's like uh for lack of a better word, henchmen are really good as well. I think about their performances a lot.
yeah.
Yeah. It's also, I think, up there in that year. I'm blanking on that what year that was. That was
I think that was 2015.
2015.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was a really good year. Was that when Mad Max came out
it
also?
was when Fury Road came out. Yep.
Yeah, that was a really good year.
Mhm.
I think those were my two favorites of that year. And yeah, it lends itself well to drama, but it also Adam McKay seems to be a really good with improv, and that improv spirit is definitely kind of it works in the movie. And one of the movies I don't really like of his cop movie he made, The Other Guys.
Right, and I have not seen
Uh,
the other guys.
yeah. After I saw The Big Short, I started to like The Other Guys more
Okay,
because I could see that there's a lot more politics in it. And I was like, oh, okay. They're trying to that's him like kind of moving into that vein. And apparently he made Anchorman 2 in order to make The Big Short. So
interesting.
yeah.
Cool.
But yeah, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of his. I'm a fan of that movie as well. It's one of the best of the um past decade.
Best decade, sure, sure.
Yeah.
And Anchorman is one of the best. I would say Anchorman is one of the best straight up comedy movies of all time. Just like a movie
Oh
that you
yeah.
can go to laugh and just have a good time. I would say it's
Hmm.
one of the best of the 21st century for sure.
Oh
So
yeah. I think I like Talladega Nights first, and then it kind of took me a while to get into Anchorman, and then I had that period of time in high school where it was just like
hmm.
watching it every day, quoting from it. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
Adam McKay is
fantastic.
definitely a director to check out.
Yeah.
Because
If
because
you haven't seen Anchorman, come on.
yeah, yeah, for sure. But let's go to your favorite movie that starts with a B. Whoa.
So I have again with this one, I have my serious movie and my goofy movie. And the goofy movie, I don't know if I like it as much as I used to, just because I think I've seen it a lot, maybe too much. So now that I'm not as, but I still love it a lot. It's still an amazing movie, but it doesn't deliver the laughs. I guess it's more endearing, I guess, to me. So this serious movie would be Battle of Algiers. Have you heard of that one?
I've heard of it.
Yeah,
I have not
it
seen it.
is so good. So it's a, I guess, Italian, French, Algerian movie from the 60s
Hmm.
that is about the French colonialism in Algeria, which was a big thing after World War II. There were a lot of terrorist attacks from Algerians on French occupiers, and it was very like when I saw it, it was being rewatched around the time of the war in Iraq
Okay.
because it was kind of a similar thing, similar dynamic that was going on with them looking for terrorist cells and then like how terrorist cells work and all this stuff. And it works as almost like a documentary and then also as an incredible film as well. And yeah, it still holds up. I still love it. Watch it almost every year. And it's something that I don't always mention, but it's definitely one of my faves.
So
And
did
it
you
has
think it
music
was
by
topical when you first saw it?
yes, for sure. And nowadays, sort of, because I don't think it's as much a topic as it was,
Right.
but certainly colonialism, you know, doesn't get old. It's still around.
Right.
And it's just a badass movie.
Good. Well, you've given me something new to watch, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my other movie is The Big Lebowski.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh,
the,
yeah.
The Coen Brothers classic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I don't watch it similar to Anchorman. I don't watch it as much as I used to, but it's still like a very endearing movie to me. I love the characters. I still quote the dialogue all the time. I think Anchorman and Big Lebowski are like the big, very quotable films.
Sure. And those are both movies that had a huge impact on pop culture.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
T-shirts.
Yes. Yes. For sure. I think it was. I mean, the Coen brothers had obviously made a lot of movies, including Fargo, before The Big Lebowski. But I almost feel like The Big Lebowski, even though Fargo had been nominated for Best Picture, was the movie that made them, a household name as directors.
Well, it's definitely like their cult movie, I feel like, because there's a certain people that watch it, it becomes like their favorite movie of all time. Or there's the people that kind of watch it and are kind of like, didn't really get it. I don't really see what it's all about. Whereas something where Raising Arizona, Fargo, the other films are a little more, I guess, easier to digest. I don't know, but The Big Lebowski is kind of an odd film, and for those people who love it, it's a deep, abiding love.
Love it.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah, and you just love the characters, and the plot is insane, and it's good stuff.
Yeah, John Goodman is one of my favorite character actors. I always try to find a good John Goodman performance in a movie, and that is one of the best out there.
Oh yeah, his performance as Walter. I still quote lines from Walter and the dude Donnie.
Yep.
Yeah. So that brings us to C.
C. So C is going to be a little bit different for me. C is not directly related to me or like a movie that I revisit frequently. It's not one of my favorite. It might be one of my favorite movies of all time, but it's not my favorite. But I do think it's the most perfect movie I've ever seen. And for me, that's Chinatown.
Oh my gosh, we have the same one.
Did you say Chinatown?
Yes.
Nice.
We have a winner. It's
Good.
Chinatown.
Love it.
All right, we're done.
Stop there. Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Go see Chinatown if you haven't.
Yeah. So why'd you pick Chinatown?
It's almost like a modern noir. I know you really, really do love film noir films. I mean, you've got your third man behind you. And
right there.
For me, it's kind of one of those quintessential 70s movies. And the 70s were one of the decades, one of the best decades for movies ever.
For sure.
Yeah. So you've got, Jack Nicholson in one of his best performances. Jack Nicholson is my favorite actor. You've got a compelling mystery and a tragic story. So it's up there. Why is it there for you?
Oh man, yeah. It is like it feels like it's a perfect movie. It has to be, if not the best. Um, it's definitely one of the best or the best of Roman Polanski's films. It has, I would say, that's the best Jack Nicholson performance. Also, it's more like I love The Shining and I love One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, but it is almost like watching Al Pacino in his later roles where
Right.
he's kind of putting on the it's Jack's here. But for Chinatown, he doesn't seem to do that. And it's way more toned down. It's way more subtle. And it's one of my favorites. And he's just so, I mean, towards the end, no spoiler alert, he just, it's so hopeless and
Mhm.
nihilistic and grim, very grim ending.
Yeah, and to your point about Jack Nicholson, this was still very early in his career. He kind of rose to prominence as an actor in the late '60s. Movies like Easy Rider, stuff like that, and this
Five
movie
easy
came out
pieces.
yep,
But yeah.
yep, and this movie came out in the early '70s. So yeah, your metaphor about Al Pacino, kind of watching his performance in the first two Godfather movies early in his career. It's more of a subtle performance, but it's still
Yeah.
just as good as any of you know his later stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love histrionic Jack Nicholson and histrionic Al Pacino, but I also love the toned down, more subtle performances as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and there's a lot to say about Chinatown. I mean, also great screenplay. Like I can't think of a more perfectly constructed screenplay. John Huston is great in it. Um, and if you think about just Roman Polanski in general, like I guess he came back to shoot it after the whole Manson thing.
Mm,
So in a way it is kind of like a reflection of that, and it makes it a very it's like a really great neo noir, but it's also has some other, you know, very dark, very disturbing things to say about humanity.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you haven't seen Chinatown, check it out.
Yeah. Please do.
Yeah.
All right. So let's switch the tables and start with your favorite D movie.
I wonder if it's going to be the same one. I'm wondering
It
because I
might be.
picked. It was a hard choice, but I picked the one that kind of had the biggest effect on me. Um, and it was between The Departed and The Dark Knight, and I chose The Dark Knight.
I
Did
chose The
you
Dark
choose The Dark Knight? Oh my gosh,
Knight.
John! Come
Man.
on, man. So
Um,
let's start The Dark Knight, man, because we are both big fans. I mean, that might be, and Nolan has made some big movies, but I think The Dark Knight is really, I would say it's arguably that or Dunkirk are his, is his opus.
so when you were talking about movies that you went to a lot when you were younger, when you were talking about
Mhm.
Anchorman, um, for me that was The Dark Knight. I This was a movie that I saw 3 times in its opening weekend, and then another 3 times in theaters after that.
Wow.
Um,
I think I saw it a total of 3 times in theaters.
yeah, it's it is the Christopher Nolan movie that I certainly revisit the most still, even though I don't, pop it in, once a quarter like
Mm.
I would in the past. But it transcends the genre, and it did something it did something outside of the norm before, superhero movies became the norm that they are now.
True.
Yeah.
True. I think you could say the same about Batman Begins also, but The Dark Knight doesn't spend as much time with Bruce Wayne and Batman. It's more about the Joker and the uh, Harvey Dent
Harvey Dent,
character.
yeah.
Yeah, which are certainly interesting characters, and Rachel Dawes's character. Um, yeah, and it's an epic film, in the tradition of, I would say it's very similar to Heat in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah,
Kind of that sprawling crime epic with a large cast, central characters, but a large cast that all plays a pivotal role in the movie.
hmm yeah, and it's awesome. It's a great film, and I think it is a big. I think it will be kind of like a big generational movie for us because we kind of grew up with that and went to go see it, and then when we were in school, like everybody. Obviously there are people who had, obnoxious Joker shirts and all this stuff. And
I have a Harvey Dent shirt.
there you go.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do think it is that or Dunkirk are his, high points. I would probably say that The Dark Knight is definitely more popular than Dunkirk. And
Oh,
it's
for sure.
certainly
Absolutely.
yeah, it's certainly up there with like the best superhero movies,
Yeah.
if not the best.
Yeah.
But
And we've talked about the Dark Knight in detail before, so we will.
mhm,
I think we can move on to E. I had
yeah,
one for E, and I
I
think
got one.
you might have had the same one, so I changed mine.
Okay.
Yeah,
Which one do you think I had?
I think you had Election.
Oh, yeah.
Did you?
Yes. Yeah.
So I had
Yeah.
a so I had a election until I was making my notes this morning, and then I was like, "Oh, Alex probably has the election." So
Yeah.
I'll just go hella basic and choose The Empire Strikes Back. But
Hey man, that's yeah. I would say that, I mean, that's a pretty big movie for me as well.
yeah,
But similar to The Dark Knight, I think it is, yeah. A lot of people love that movie.
yeah, it's a great. I mean, we've talked about Star Wars in detail before, and basically the only universal thing that everybody can agree on with Star Wars is that The Empire Strikes Back is great. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I think it's got the best script. Um, it's got the best direction. It's it's got the best Yoda. Yoda is super great in it.
yeah.
Um, yeah,
Luke
there's not
Skywalker,
much to say.
the character, he grows a lot through the story. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
Luke gets to
obviously
train.
the huge spoiler that everybody knows, but making a spoiler like that before spoiler culture was a thing was pretty
Yeah.
cool. Like I would have loved to have been sitting in a movie theater in like the early '80s and just seen that scene.
Oh yeah, for
Yeah,
sure. There's like, I was listening to the screenwriter of Empire Strikes Back. That was apparently like his first script he ever wrote, which is insane. And apparently he was like, he's funny, like if you look at, because he became a director later, but if you look at interviews with him, he was like, yeah, I got hired by, he's like this guy from West Virginia, and it's like, yeah, I got hired by George Lucas, and the first thing he told me, he was like, oh yeah, so Darth Vader is Luke's father. And apparently he was like, what? Apparently it blew his mind, which is amazing.
yeah.
Yeah, that
Um,
was apparently a big secret.
and also, obviously, Star Wars has always been a marketing giant,
Yeah.
but I think The Empire Strikes Back was probably the last one before it got really, you know, toy centric with Return of the Jedi and some of the creatures and stuff like that. So
Yeah. And I just love like the moodiness of it. I think that's my favorite thing
yeah,
is like all the, Boba Fett's in it. Everyone loves Boba Fett. and the lightsaber battle with Darth Vader. It's awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's cool that you had election also and decided not to do it. Why did you quit on election?
I quit on so I actually rewatched Election this week.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, I watched it. I watched it this week. I love it. It's still as good as when I watched it regularly in my youth. I
Yeah,
didn't. I didn't quit on Election.
good.
I didn't want us to have too many in a row that I thought were the same, and I truly thought you were going to choose Election for that one.
And
Um,
you predicted right.
yeah. So we both obviously love it. It's
Yeah.
why do you love it?
I love it because it's just it's a dark comedy and it doesn't hold back from that. Like it's really just it feels like a very honest portrayal of high school, and then also a pretty honest portrayal of like American elections,
Mm,
especially if you think about like 2016, right?
right.
Like, and what we're going through still. And I guess a lot of people compared, Tracy Flick with Hillary Clinton in a lot
Right.
of ways,
Yeah, I read that.
and it's true, and it's funny because there's so many like op-ed pieces, especially now. Like back in the 90s, like they really didn't know how to not that I was there when this was happening or knew anything else about this was going on, but back in the 90s, they had a really hard time marketing it. So they kind of made Tracy Flick into the villain of the movie. And she kind of is, and she isn't. Like, she's actually like, she's a pretty cool character. She's a pretty cool person, but she's definitely like villainized by a lot of people, and Mr. McAllister,
Yeah,
who's
she definitely marketed as the main antagonist of the movie.
yeah, but Mr. McAllister is also a kind of a creep. He's kind of a weirdo. And you love like that Matthew Broderick. I love when he's playing against his um Ferris Bueller type.
yeah, yeah.
It's great.
I think a lot of the characters in that movie definitely have good intentions and they're flawed individuals, except for
Mm.
Paul. Paul
Yeah,
Metzler.
Paul is
Paul
yeah,
is
Paul is a saint. It's true.
yeah.
I love the part where he looks at the camera and goes, "Or maybe I could be dead." That's the best.
Mm.
It's yeah, I actually had it was a really formative movie for me because I went to go see it at the Virginia Film Festival and Matthew Broderick was there,
Oh, nice.
and I chatted with him afterwards, and he was a very nice guy. And there's some shocking moments in the early parts of the movie, and I just remember like being shocked by them. And it just kind of blew my mind. It's a great
Yeah,
funny movie.
and I kind of forgot that whole those shocking moments from the beginning of the movie until I
Yep.
rewatched it, and I was like, holy smokes!
Yeah.
I remember this being dark. This is
Yeah.
this is pretty dark, but
Yes,
it's
it's definitely.
hilarious.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there's some good moments when Mr. McAllister gets stung by the bee.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is good
Uh,
stuff.
it's just those subtle filmmaking things that I like the bowl of apples, bananas, and oranges on
Yeah.
the, on the table in Paul Metzler's house. You know,
Yeah, I remember like there's some interview with that director and he said he thought a lot about like the fruit the
yeah,
fruit choices.
Coke and Pepsi.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so good. And also the what's the other running person who's like kind of the anarchist,
Tammy
Tammy?
Metzler.
Yeah, she's great too.
Yeah,
Like who cares?
she kind of reminded me of the Trump of the story.
A little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah, you could see. Or definitely that like, anarchist
if we're if we're
idea.
doing a comparison to the 2016 election here,
Yeah.
but yeah, I've read many articles where Tracy has been compared to Hillary Clinton. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
and you can
but
see that.
you know, it's a great movie. It's a great movie for the satire. It's a great movie for, if you're a person who chooses to compare fictional characters to real people, it's funny in that regard. And if you like Matthew Broderick not being your typical Matthew Broderick, you'll love it as well. So, yeah.
Yeah. Other good ones where he's not himself, especially those the movie you like, Manchester by the Sea. He's really great being
Yep.
weird Matthew Broderick. You Could Count on Me, also by Kenneth Lonergan. He's a creepy boss. That's great.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So that brings us to F.
Yeah.
What did you choose? I don't
I
think
don't.
you chose
I
this
don't
one.
think we're gonna. I think
Nope.
we didn't choose the
I think-
same one, and I don't think you'd even be able to guess mine because it's very off-brand for me. It's just a movie that I saw at the right time in my life, and it
Let's
is
hear it.
Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would not have expected that. Why that film? I like that film also. I forget about it.
Yeah. It is my. I don't go to laugh out loud comedies too often. Like I don't find myself visiting them too often, but it is. I saw it at the right time in my life. Just where I needed to take a trip and reflect and see those things. It's hilarious. It's a Judd Apatow produced comedy, and he's made some really great comedy movies. But I think this one is probably.
Did he direct it?
He did not direct it. He produced it.
Yeah, it is definitely in his like arena though.
Yes, he was a producer on it. And I've always really been a fan of Jason Segel.
Yeah.
He's just
I like Bill Hader in it.
Bill Hader's terrific in everything.
Yeah.
For me, Jason Segel's he's always been kind of the relatable everyman.
Yeah.
Kind of a big funny guy that life happens around him, and I like it very much. I don't really have too much to say about it, but I like it.
Russell Brand's good. That's kind of when he was getting big. Yeah, I like it too. It's a great movie. The nude scene, it's pretty funny.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's definitely one of the better Judd. I really like Judd Apatow movies. Certainly Superbad was a big movie for me. Haven't watched it as much, but Superbad, Knocked Up, those are big movies for me at least.
There was an Amy Schumer one from 2015 that I cannot remember the name of, but I loved that one.
Yeah. I can't remember it either. It was good though. Yeah.
Judd
Apatow puts out good content. He's a great director.
Yeah.
Good writer too.
Yeah.
So I don't think he chose mine. Mine is kind of pretentious.
Yeah, so we're going in two completely different directions.
Yes, I think we're gonna start to have more diverging ones. I chose Fanny and Alexander by Ingmar Bergman from the 80s. Have you heard of it?
No.
It's so good, dude. If you like Ari Aster or the guy who made The Lighthouse, you should definitely check out some Bergman. In particular, Fanny and Alexander, Seven Seal, Persona, Hour of the Wolf. Yeah, he's got some bangers.
There's a cut of this movie that is 312 minutes long. Did you watch the 188-minute theatrical cut or the 312-minute cut?
I've seen both, but I think both are good. I saw the theatrical one first, and I think I enjoy the theatrical one more, but there are certain scenes that are in the TV cut that are really, really good. And I think you do get more story from it because Ingmar Bergman was like not only a great filmmaker, he was a really great writer of films. And as a lot of filmmakers, and this kind of like relates to what we have now with these miniseries, a lot of filmmakers, especially in the 80s, were starting to just do TV shows, which were just extended long movies.
Right.
And Fanny Alexander is really, I mean, you could probably watch the TV version. A lot of people think that's the better version, but you could go either way.
Great.
And Ari Aster is described as the Wizard of Oz on acid. I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that, but it's a nice way of putting it.
What is the general plot of the movie?
So it's about, I guess Ingmar Bergman kind of had this like messed up childhood where I think his dad was like a really big religious freak and was probably a tyrant and maybe a Nazi sympathizer. And a lot of his movies are just about him dealing with like God and like dealing with his Christianity and like whether he believes in it or not.
Mm.
And he and Fanny Alexander, it follows these two kids that it's just like about their life in with their family in Sweden. It's a good Christmas movie. But then the dad dies and they get a stepdad. And the stepdad is a mofo.
Mm.
And but there's a lot of like sort of magical, I guess magical realist stuff. And there's a lot of like, yeah, if you like gothic and horror stuff, it really is kind of a horror movie in a way.
So there are horror elements to it.
For sure. For
Yeah.
sure. And in a lot of Bergman movies, a lot of them end up becoming horror movies to a certain extent.
Right. Right.
Yeah. I think you would dig it. It's definitely like
I looked it up right away when you saw it, and I kind of read some details, so I think I might dig it.
yeah, it's cool. It's definitely one of the more easy to watch Bergman movies, and I think it's just because it's more modern. It's more of like an actual story versus he was very arty and would get very like was definitely somebody who pushed the limits of like what cinema could be in the 60s. And then as he got older, he was just like, I'm just gonna tell stories.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
And it's my fave.
Cool.
Of his. Yeah. So that is F. Those are both unexpected ones.
Yeah, those are
what
both
about G?
Unexpected ones and very different ones.
For sure.
Yeah.
we have varied taste, I think.
We do,
which is
and
good.
I think that's a good thing, and I think it allows us to have conversations and introduce each other to different things, or even just the idea of revisiting something. From time to time. So yeah, that's healthy, and dialogue is always key there.
Yeah. So what'd you do for G?
G, we might have gone up the same alley with this one. I'm not sure if we did. Did you do Goodfellas?
Nope.
Okay, I didn't do Goodfellas either.
Good.
I did.
Well, Goodfellas is great. I watched it recently, but I have a G movie that is even bigger than that for me, surprisingly.
I did The Godfather Part 2.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Nice.
Yep.
Nice. Why did you do the number 2 and not number 1?
I debated this one in my head. I definitely rewatch Part 1 more. I think it's the easier watch. But I think Part 2 does a lot more with filmmaking that Part 1 didn't do. I think kind of the parallel stories of, Vito Corleone's rise as in the crime world, paralleling Michael's reign as the dawn of the Corleone family is really good. And you kind of get to see two great actors. It's pretty rare for Al Pacino and Robert De Niro to be in the same movie together. I can only think of a few. I can think of this one, Heat, and The Irishman. I'm not sure of any other.
There's another one, but I don't think it's worth. I don't think it's that good.
Yeah, and they don't share screen time in this movie, but
Mm.
It's still great to see them both on screen at the same time under the direction of Francis Ford Coppola. And I think, you know, there's a really big fall from grace in this one. You know, I think in the first Godfather, like obviously, you know, all of these characters are bad people, right? Like
Mm.
they're mobsters, they commit crime regularly, but you kind of get their code of ethics, right?
Yeah.
And I think in this one, you kind of see um, a fall from that. You kind of see one character trying to wield too much power, and then as the movie goes towards its conclusion, he ultimately does something pretty unthinkable
Mm.
that
Yeah.
that you wouldn't
Talking
see.
about Michael Corleone.
Yeah, I'm talking about Michael.
Mm. Yeah, it's one I think I've only seen it once all the way through, but it is a really great movie. It's very epic, and it definitely takes that same, The Godfather plot and idea, and it extends it even more out into the world. Like you get more of Vito's story, which is really cool, and you get more of certainly Al Pacino and Fredo. And the guy who played Fredo, he must have been one of the best actors of the 70s for sure. And I think it was 5 movies he was in before he died. His 5 movies he was in are really like just bar none, just the best stuff.
Oh my goodness, yeah. John Cazale was his name, and
Yeah.
yeah, the first two Godfather movies, The Deer Hunter, Dog Day Afternoon, and then what else was he in? He he was
Deer
a
Hunter, Dog Day Afternoon, The Conversation,
The Conversation. Okay,
and The Godfathers. Yep.
yeah, he is a terrific character actor who certainly died too early.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, incredible performances from him, and incredible performances from De Niro, Pacino,
Yeah.
everybody else in that movie.
Yeah, and there's also
Diane
this
Keaton. Diane
There's
Keaton.
also the section in Godfather Part 2 where they go to Cuba, which is a really good part.
Yeah.
You have you broke my heart, Fredo.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
awesome.
New Year's
Awesome
Eve,
scene.
1959. Yep, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for my G, I chose The Great Escape.
Oh, okay. So yeah,
Yeah.
we watched that one together.
Mm-hmm.
So I've seen that movie as well, and I know you really love that movie. So and we kind of have differing opinions on it. So why does it stand
Yeah.
out so much to you?
It is, like The Last of the Mohicans. It's really a movie that I saw when I was younger, and it really influenced me a lot. I remember being a kid and watching it and being like really feeling suspense
Mhm.
when they're down in the tunnels. And I still remember that, and have a lot of nostalgia for that movie, even though I didn't grow up, when it came out, but I certainly have seen it so many times, and it's like a part of my, subconscious almost. I've watched it so much. But yeah, it's classic. It's hard to kind of similar to other movies we'll talk about. Certainly Inglorious Bastards. It's kind of like a fun action adventure movie, but at the same time, the ideas and the themes are like very real. Like it's about these guys that are escaping from this prison camp, which actually is not really a bad prison camp at all. Like it's
Yeah, I
actually they're
remember they made it look like they were thriving in there.
yeah, they were like gardening, and like I think in general, like prison camps between like Germans and Allies were pretty stable. I mean, they were pretty good living circumstances. It was almost like going to a boarding school or something, but they still are trying to escape, and they're still trying to like fight back, even though they're in the camp. And it's just really like inspiring and you know exciting story. And
All
you've got
star
Steve
cast.
McQueen on the bike, and yeah, it's just classic badass movie.
Yep. Charles Bronson.
Charles Bronson.
Forget about Charles Bronson.
Yeah, it's got an incredible cast. Yeah.
Yeah,
um
huge cast.
yeah.
Yeah, good choice.
And yeah,
I,
it's
I
it's definitely one of my faves.
I did not think you would go with that one.
Mm.
So
It's a big one on my list. And also if you watch a lot of Tarantino movies, I think Tarantino, that's one of his big favorites as well.
I can see that.
Hmm.
I can see that. So
Yeah.
okay, that takes us into H.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What did you do? I don't know if you did mine. I don't think you did.
I don't think I did. I went
Yeah.
with I went with more of a just a movie that I like for H. I went for with just a movie that I like for a few of these left actually.
Oh yeah, me
Um,
too.
yeah, I went with The Hunt for Red October.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
Nice. I love that movie.
yeah,
Forgot about
great
that.
movie.
That's also a big one like I watched when I was young a lot.
Tom Clancy is kind of a I don't know if it's a guilty pleasure or just a pleasure. You know, I so he's a big Baltimore. He's a big presence in Baltimore.
For
Uh,
sure.
Rest in peace. And this is by far the best adaptation of any of his books.
Definitely. And I think it's one of his best books as well.
Yeah,
Although
yeah.
I,
One
I
of his
like his
earliest books
books.
keeps the tension strong throughout. They can get
Yeah.
a little dense later on, but The Hunt for Red October is concise. It's tense. It's awesome.
Yeah. It's also got a ton of information on submarines. I
Yeah,
remember there's a lot of like real info. And it feels like although I like Patriot Games. That's another one I read. It can feel like with the other Tom Clancy novels, like they can kind of go off the rails a little bit.
right.
But certainly for Red October, you feel like, oh, this could happen. This could have happened.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And certainly the movie is good and plays off of that. And you've got great performances from Alec Baldwin, Sean Connery.
Sam
Sean
Neill.
Connery, it's pretty
Yeah,
great. Sam Neill.
yep.
Um, yeah, it's cool. And we both like, you know, we've got parents from the military, and uh, yeah, we certainly can like recognize that life.
Yeah. The Hunt for Red October is kind of like the Moby Dick of submarine techno books. What Moby Dick is to whales, the Hunt for Red October is to submarines.
I can see that. Yeah, there's a huge amount of information about submarines you do not need to know. You're like, oh,
Yep.
the core reactor, don't care. All right, let's get through this paragraph.
Yeah, I love it
um,
though.
yeah,
So what
and
did you go with?
I went with Hot Fuzz.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
I love Hot Fuzz.
yeah, that's just a really fun movie, and I like Edgar Wright a lot.
Sure.
Um, Baby Driver,
Working today.
Shaun of the Dead, World's End. But Hot Fuzz, I don't know what it is. Like, well, I just really like action movies. So the fact that in a way it does satirize a lot action movies, and then placing it, in England, it almost makes it like kind of a horror movie a little bit. But yeah, there's nothing better than like that ending, and yeah, it's just fun. Just a funny movie.
Yeah, it's hysterical, and
Very entertaining.
I think it was one of Timothy Dalton's later movies that
Yeah, he's great in
he's hilarious in it.
it. Yeah.
He's a very funny man.
Yeah.
Um,
Like, here come the fuzz.
so is Hot Fuzz your favorite Edgar Wright movie, or is it just the one that happens to start with H that you thought of?
I actually think it is. Certainly I like Shaun of the Dead and Baby Driver and Scott Pilgrim, but I don't know. For me, like Hot Fuzz, it came out in 2007, I think.
Yeah,
I think that's the one where I really noticed him, and I was like, oh my gosh, like this guy is really good and really funny. And I still kind of think about it a lot because I like cops and robbers movies like Heat and Point Break, and it certainly makes fun of that, like that style and like the Tony Scott cuts, and it's good. It's a great
yeah,
movie.
yeah. And 2007 was a terrific year for movies.
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. And I think he still holds up as like one of the best directors around right now.
Oh, I think so too. He's incredibly creative. For some cinephiles, anyways, an Edgar Wright movie is one of those event movies that you'll go out of your way to see. Like, Edgar Wright's directing it, so you're going to go out of your way to see it.
Definitely, definitely.
For myself, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love Scott Pilgrim. I know Scott Pilgrim's one of his more divisive movies, but I do love Scott Pilgrim.
I don't understand that. That's one of his. That's definitely one of. It's a great movie.
It's
yeah.
fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
So for
we might have the same.
We're gonna stick with 2007. So maybe we don't. I think I know where you're going.
Okay. Yeah.
But I'm sticking with 2007 for I.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you know where I'm going now?
I don't know. 2007. With
I'm going Into the Wild.
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm going 2008 Inglourious Bastards. You probably knew that.
Yep.
That's a staple for me.
Yeah.
It's yeah.
In my opinion, it's Quentin Tarantino's best movie. He's another one of those, event directors that when they're making a movie, you're going to see them. But Inglourious Bastards is certainly a masterpiece.
I think so too. And certainly there are things to say about Django Unchained and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and Pulp Fiction and all of his movies really. But yeah, Inglourious Bastards is kind of an odd film, but it's also really good. And it has a lot of the same themes that kind of run through all of his movies, but it's set in World War II, and it's very, influenced by The Great Escape, The Dirty Dozen, but also it's kind of its own wacky thing.
Mm-hmm. It was actually the first Tarantino movie I saw.
Oh wow,
yeah,
nice. I don't know, maybe Pulp Fiction was. I think Pulp Fiction was the first one I saw. Yeah. And then you've got Christoph Waltz, who just steals the show totally.
Oh my goodness, absolutely. Yeah, and that's a great cast as well. You've got Christoph Waltz, you've got
Brad Pitt.
You got Brad Pitt, Michael Fassbender in one of his earlier performances.
That's right.
Yeah.
Before he got really big, and that was kind of like before he was a big actor.
Yeah, and a delightful Mike Myers cameo.
That's right. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and the scenes, whereas if you look at Django is certainly a great movie and has great performances, but like the structure of Inglourious Bastards is really kind of odd, and they're like these scenes that play out for a really long time, and in a way it works. Like that's why it's really good, because it's so offbeat. Hitler is a character. They kill Hitler, and I don't know, it's just it's its own odd thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Into the Wild, I forgot about that one.
Yeah, it's kind of one that got a little bit overlooked in the other movies that came out in 2007.
For sure.
It's a Sean Penn movie based on John Krakauer's book of the same name, about Christopher McCandless, who went into the wild in the early 90s and on a journey of self-discovery. But yeah, so it has a terrific soundtrack by Eddie Vedder. Great soundtrack. Really kind of beautiful cinematography. I don't want to go too into it because we got a few more movies to go, but it's and then an early performance by Kristen Stewart, who
oh, that's right,
who just like Robert Pattinson is kind of overlooked a lot because of movies that earlier in their career, but who is a quite compelling actress.
I forgot she's in that. Yeah, there's a good cast. Forgetting who plays the old man.
Hal Holbrook.
Uh, Hal Holbrook, yeah,
Yeah.
and John Hurt. It is, yeah, it's yeah. 2007 again was like an insane year for movies, and Into the Wild was certainly one of the best of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a really incredible story also. The book as well, I think, is I would say is about like even. Like they're both like just as good as the
Hmm.
other. And yeah, it's well directed by Sean Penn. Yeah, I would agree. It's a great movie.
Yeah. So that takes us to Jay. I had trouble between
J
three
J
for
J.
Jay.
Oh man, you're gonna hate the J choice I made.
What's the J choice you made, man? Is it like
What's your
John
J
or
choice?
something? What?
What's your J choice?
I went with Jurassic Park,
Oh, cool. Nice.
but I actively
Yeah.
thought about Jaws and Jerry Maguire.
Yeah. I was thinking Jaws. Jaws was a possibility. I actually went with JFK.
Oh no! Oh, I hate
I
JFK. I love JFK the president. I hate JFK the movie.
yeah. Well, JFK the movie is like I don't think about like I don't even associate it with the president. I
Oh
just
no, not at all.
associate it with like
I
it's
just had to distinguish that for myself. Or-
yeah. Yeah. But I like Jurassic Park. I like that he chose that. Definitely one of Spielberg's best. And then
yeah,
you could have Jaws. But yeah, JFK, like besides Platoon, like Platoon's a great movie, but JFK is like, I don't know, it's just a trip. Like it's just pure paranoia, you know?
yeah,
And I love the performance from Joe Pesci. It's like his most like just anxious.
mm,
um and it's just bonkers, and well, I guess it's kind of like from the same era. Both have that guy from Seinfeld in it.
Wayne Knight.
Yeah, Wayne Knight's in both of those movies.
Yep.
Yeah, but certainly like I think I got into it before this whole craze of conspiracy theories happened, and looking at it from that perspective, I don't enjoy it, but as a film, I think it's very like it definitely creates a mood very well.
It does create a mood. And I,
And a great cast.
yeah, great cast. I love Tommy Lee Jones.
Yeah.
Tommy Lee Jones is one of my favorite people in the world.
That's right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. His performance is it's a bit cringy a little
It's
bit.
yeah, it's not his
Yeah.
best performance of the '90s.
No.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah. Okay, and we've talked about Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park's great.
Yeah.
So,
Dinosaurs.
yeah. So where did you go with K? Because I went pure nonsense with K.
I went in a very pretentious area,
I
but I think it's worth talking about.
see this is gonna be like F again because I went pure opposite.
Yeah. All right,
Um,
let's hear it.
all right, I went with A Knight's Tale.
Oh, cool. I haven't seen A Knight's Tale, actually.
Heath Ledger classic from.
I should check it out.
You should check it out.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, great.
I'll watch it
Great
today.
movie from the early 2000s. You've got Heath Ledger. You've got Paul Bettany.
Paul Bettany. Yeah. He's awesome. Underrated, I think.
The guy who eventually went on to play Robert Baratheon in Game of Thrones is there. I don't know his name.
Oh.
Yeah.
Probably recognize him.
Yeah.
Yeah, Heath Ledger.
Yeah.
Yeah. Heath Ledger was awesome. Died too soon.
For sure.
Great
For sure.
actor.
Yeah.
I chose a movie called Killer of Sheep. So it's check it out. It's by Charles Burnett, and he is one of like kind of the great unsung heroes of independent cinema
Mhm.
and of Black American cinema, especially. And it came out in the 70s, and it's just like kind of like a John Cassavetes independent film. It's very just like life happening sort of thing. And it's definitely a portrait of like African American life in LA before a lot of things happened in the 80s. And I just remember being really impacted by it. I saw it at a film festival when I was 15, and I met the director and actually had kind of an odd encounter with him.
Mm.
But he was very nice, and it was very cool to see him and see his movies. And he is super underrated, super underrated. Um, yeah, and
It's a series of vignettes, right?
yeah, more or less, yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. And it was shot in the, and am I off base here? I'm just kind of reading it as you're telling me, but
Sure.
it was originally shot in the 70s and then kind of compiled together in the 2000s.
Sort of. There might be a new cut of
Okay.
it. But I know it got released in the 70s, and I don't think it got good reviews at first, but then later it became like the Library of Congress like saved it and like tried to preserve it.
Yeah.
Because it is like a snapshot basically of a community, of a family, and it's very powerful.
I'll certainly check that out. I'm sure it's the far better film to A Knight's Tale.
To
So.
Knight's Tale. Knight's Tale sounds cool too. I'm gonna check it out. I'm gonna watch it. Because I've only seen parts of it and it looks fun. It looks like a good time.
Cool.
I have to watch. I really want to watch the was it 10 Things I Hate About You or something with Heath
Yeah, Tell Me
Ledger?
About You. It's a good teen
Yeah.
comedy.
Yes, I need to check that one out as well.
Yeah. Heath Ledger's
And for
character.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'll have to see it. I've heard good things about it. And so which brings us to L. What was your L choice?
My L was a sprawling epic from the 60s.
Oh, I know.
Oh yeah. Oh
I
yeah.
know.
Yep.
Does
Lawrence
it
of
begin with
Arabia.
law and end with Bia?
It does start with law and end in Bia.
Lawrence of Arabia. I was, I that was on my list, but I erased it for something else, which I thought was, I just wanted to do something more obscure, I guess. But Lawrence of Arabia is, yeah, it's up there.
It's up there. Well, so
Yeah.
what'd you go with?
I went with another sprawling epic from the 40s called The Life and Death of Colonel Blimp.
I've heard of
And
that movie before.
it's so good.
Mm.
It's awesome. If you like, I would say in some way it's kind of the plot at least is kind of comparable to Goodfellas a little bit. And Martin Scorsese's he really loves those two directors that worked on it. But it's just really great. And I had the chance to see it on film in a theater, and before I ever saw it, and it was an experience. It was
That's
really
neat.
really great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also saw Lawrence of Arabia in 4K a while ago.
Man, I'm jealous. I
Yeah.
I think when I watch movies that are made prior to the 60s, I always get a better experience when I have the opportunity to see them in a theater
Definitely.
versus at home.
Yeah.
I mean, I think in general you have a better experience at the theater, but for me, I mean, this movie's from the 40s. Like having the opportunity to see it on big screen and kind of experience it in the way that you may have experienced at the time it was released would be beneficial.
Definitely. I think watching Lawrence of Arabia on the TV can even be like not right. Because it is meant to be in that big, that big screen for
Absolutely.
sure. Whereas some movies, I don't know, you could give or take. Like, I don't know if you need to be in a theater for The Dark Knight. It would be nice, but you could definitely get a great experience just watching it on TV.
Yeah.
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 That's a good point, because I think that kind of works with me for, especially with like silent films. Like I have a hard time focusing on like silent films or really old movies. But
Exactly.
if you watch like The General with a full orchestra or a band playing, like it's a mind-blowing experience.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But certainly Lawrence of Arabia is I actually watched it recently again. And it's a very, very beautiful movie.
And it's one I would love to have the opportunity to see on the screen.
It's worth it.
Yeah.
Also, I had a weird experience when I went to Spain for the first time, and I went to Sevilla. I was walking along, and I was like, "Where have I seen this staircase?" I was walking on a staircase in the near the palace, and I was watching Lawrence of Arabia, and I was like, "Oh, that's I've been there. That's that staircase I went on. It's basically all the scenes in Cairo are just
Mhm.
shot in Sevilla, and I think both Lawrence of Arabia and Doctor Zhivago are filmed a lot in Madrid and Sevilla in general.
Right.
Yeah, which it was probably pretty cheap during
Very cool encounter.
Franco era.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always cool to, go travel the world and then see something that you recognize from film and see it in its actual.
That's
Yeah.
that's what I did when I
Yeah.
was when I was in Europe. I was like, I'm gonna find all these spots.
Right. Awesome.
Um, so why
Well,
why did you pick Lawrence of Arabia? I'm wondering.
I I really do I really do love epic films. You know, kind of those sprawling journeys.
Mm,
Movies like Ben Hur, um, even movies like Titanic, movies
yeah.
like Doctor Zhivago.
Hmm.
I am a person who my next movie choice won't show this, but who can appreciate just the sheer scale and spectacle of a film. And
Yeah.
I think very few movies present that better than Lawrence of Arabia.
Yeah, it's a beautiful movie. Um, Great performances from Peter O'Toole, Omar Sharif.
Yep.
And I also love the editing. The editing is like, and I guess David Lean started out as an editor, but like the stuff where he blows out the candle or blows out the match. Yeah, there's some really, really good, editing
And that's
techniques
a
in that
beautiful
movie.
shot.
Yeah.
That's a gorgeous shot.
He blows out the candle and it cuts to a sunset. And
Mhm.
it's just like, yeah, it's it's a cool moment.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Life and Death of Colonel Blimp is kind of a different thing, but it is also super, super epic. It's, yeah, I would compare it to like a Martin Scorsese movie in a way, because it lasts over a decade, but there's like a lot of things going on in it that are really, I don't want to give away too much, but it's an amazing experience of a
Nice.
movie.
Nice. Check it out.
Which
That
brings
takes
us
us to our
to,
last of the day, which is
yeah.
M. I think
Hmm.
you already know my M, and I don't think I know your M. There are a lot of very good M movies out there.
Yes, there are. Yes, there are. So this is one of those ones I couldn't make up my mind. So I picked two. But what did you pick?
I picked Manchester by the Sea.
Of course.
Of course.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a big one. Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's everything about it, the screenplay, the performances, just the nuance of the acting,
Mm,
the the soundtrack. Michelle Williams, Casey Affleck, Lucas Hedges,
mm.
Kyle Chandler, like it,
Yeah.
Matthew Broderick. It all it
Yeah.
all meshes so perfectly, and it is a tragic, bittersweet story, and it's unlike unlike my previous movie Lawrence of Arabia, which is a sprawling epic. It is about a relationship between a few different people, and it is just a great study of those people and how tragedy impacts life.
Yeah. It's a tragic comedy in a way.
Yeah, there's definitely some subtle humor in there.
Mm-hmm. You have to with a movie that's so so bleak.
Yeah, it is a
Yeah.
bleak movie.
I remember we were talking about it and we mentioned something about Kubrick and I had to think about because I remember I feel like you said at one point that there's a kind of a Kubrick thing going on in the movie and I realized what it is.
Tell me.
It's the classical music.
Yes.
It's that in particular, I don't know if they do classical music. I think they do classical music throughout, but it's in particular the use of classical music in that scene, in that really rough scene.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because if we think about Kubrick movies, a lot of his movies are really cold. And that movie seems to be it's cold, but it's also got like there's a lot of humanity in it at the same
Yeah.
time.
See, I don't think of Manchester by the Sea as cold. I think of it as bleak, like you
It
said,
looks
but
cold.
the yeah, chilly. But but the
Yeah.
but yeah, just the human element of it and
Yeah.
just
It's a lot about like forgiveness and
yeah,
guilt and all this stuff.
yeah. Maybe I'm just a softie for classical music, between Kubrick and Amadeus and Manchester by the Sea. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's all I need. But
Classical music is good.
yeah.
So my two movies, one of them is Mandy, but you know what? We're not going to talk about Mandy because I already talked about it. Um, what we're going to talk, let's talk about McCabe and Miss Miller. That's
Okay.
the one I chose.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Um,
maybe it's just the fact that I like folk guitar rock music, but the soundtrack of that insane because if you listen to maybe you see that movie first and then you hear the music or if you listen to Leonard Cohen's first album, the two movies for me are intertwined and they're like perfect together. You like it because it's very much a anti-western like all the westerns in the 70s were.
mhm.
Butch Cassidy, Bonnie and Clyde, maybe it's not really a western, but it's kind of a western a little bit. Bank robbers. But McCabe and Miss Miller is it's just really cool, and I think it's my favorite Altman movie, which is somebody we haven't really talked about too much. But Robert Altman was like he was a big deal, and McCabe and Miss Miller is my favorite movie of his.
That's awesome. And
Yeah.
and it's a movie that has been on it's a movie that's been on my watch list for years. I
Mm.
know I need to see McCabe and Miss Miller. I love
Check it out.
Norman
I might
Bates.
watch it today. It's so good.
Are you? Nice.
Yeah, I was thinking about on like a cold, like snowy day, like McCabe and Miss Miller or The Ghost Rider are usually my go tos.
Wait, are you saying the Ghost Writer? The
Richter, yes,
with
not
with Ewan
Rider with
McGregor or
Nick
Ghost
Cage.
Rider with
No.
okay.
Yeah, the one with Ewan McGregor. Yeah,
Yeah, great movie.
yeah,
Yeah. And Pierce
definitely.
Brosnan.
Um, but yeah, it's really worth watching. It's got great performances like from Julie Christie, um, our favorite, what's his face, Warren Beatty.
Yeah, Warren Beatty.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shelley
And
Duvall is in this. Wow.
yep, Shelley Duvall. It's I think it is Robert Altman's best.
Okay.
And Nashville is really good, and MASH is okay. Probably the TV show is better.
I love
Um,
MASH. I love
yeah.
MASH, the TV show and the movie.
Oh,
Two
nice.
very, very different things. But
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, MASH, MASH the movie is more like in the vein of Altman being like an anti-authoritarian director. And I guess his sets were like really loose and everybody partied a lot and he like would gamble and drink with like all the extras and crew members.
right.
Um, but he's a really good director.
Yeah.
And McCabe and Miss Miller it almost seems like I don't know, it's just like it just looks good, it sounds good, and it's a very bittersweet ending.
Hmm. Well, good, and yeah, I think we both kind of wrapped up on bittersweet stories.
Yeah,
Yeah, so that was a detailed conversation. I appreciate it. I loved it.
yeah.
And we'll be back soon for N through Z, which might have some interesting letters in there.
I know. We still both need to find some good ones for X other than X-Men.
Yeah, other than X-Men or Triple X.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
We'll be looking.
yeah.
All right. Well, that was another episode of Movie Mood. We will see you next week with N through Z. Later, Gator.
Be well.